20. Thank you to those of you joining us on the program, those of you joining us on the GBN television Facebook page, those of you on the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube, sorry, not the YouTube channel, but the website, gbn.gd. Those of you watching on GBN, channel 7, 11, and 20. And those of you listening on Classic 105.5, 105.9, Classic 105.5, 105.7. Yes. Breaking concentration. All right, we're ready to start it. It is Wednesday, as usual. On this day of the week, we facilitate representative of the government. And this morning, I have joining me virtually is the head of the government, Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, trying to get the technology to cooperate with us. But he is definitely on the Zoom platform. Just making sure. Prime Minister, can you hear me?
And clear.
I'm glad to know. We can't see you at the moment, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I'm seeing you.
Well, until the technicians could sort it out, we'll just start the program because I know you're a busy man and you have the country's business to get back to. So we're going to start it until we can get the visuals up and running. Once we can hear you, that's the important thing. So we'll start this morning, Prime Minister, with government's handling of COVID-19 pandemic. We've had a number of things put in place, regulations in terms of ensuring the public is safe as well as the economy can get going once again. Overall, your thoughts on how we've been dealing with the pandemic for the past few months?
Basically, I think the key thing is that we all recognize that we are into a new situation facing all of us individually, citizens of the country, each one of us. And as a government, clearly we're facing something that none of us was expecting to face. So clearly it brought in a number of challenges. But I think generally speaking, we can safely say as a country that we're charting this course reasonably well. And with the level of cooperation from various sectors of the society, I think we can feel comfortable that we are going through this period, which is a difficult one, and expecting to have reasonably good success in the implementation of what we are planned to do. We have the situation with the stimulus package, which is a tremendous challenge for the Ministry of Finance and the staff there. But we've had the cooperation of people in general. I mean, every now and then there is always elements who don't seem to understand, but that's normal in every society. But generally speaking, it is going well. People are commending the initiative of the public servants in general and the ministry and the government for some of the initiatives and the help that we're giving. We have extremely good cooperation from the frontline workers at all levels. And let me make it clear, frontline workers is not just nurses and doctors, which are, of course, clearly at the top of the line in every respect. But we've seen the garbage collectors and contractors out there cleaning the streets in difficult times and risky times for them. We've seen that. We've seen the support of the people of the public servants in many ministries who have come out in difficult times. Not all of them have shown their best effort, but we have to always be happy enough for those who are prepared to come and make the sacrifices that we ask them to make. And as a government, I think the cabinet members have been making enormous sacrifices at the expense of their own families. So I think generally speaking, we can be proud as a nation. And I think people are commending us from the outside and regionally and so on for having taken the initiative very early. Last time I do remember, we locked down earlier than most countries in the region, and I think to some extent we benefited we benefited a lot by having done so. That's why we have not had many cases, despite the fact that we have had more testing done per population, per 100,000 population in the entire Caribbean and probably in the world. in terms of our numbers of persons. And the level of rates of infection identified has been relatively low. So I think generally speaking, we feel good, but we can't drop our guard. This virus is a serious one. It requires the support and cooperation of all citizens. I hasten to say that some of our citizens simply do not understand, and not just our citizens. You look on television and listen to radio regionally and internationally, you see some persons simply do not understand the danger that this virus places for themselves and their families. And that's something that we have to be concerned about. As I drive around and around the country, I see most people adhering to the protocols. But again, you have some of us simply believe that we are immune to the virus. And like people always feel when something is like that is happening, it can affect everybody but me. But my friend, everybody, that includes every single person, any one of us. Prime ministers have caught it. The heir to the throne, King Prince Charles, have caught it, and just go around the world, you see people at all levels, from the lowest level in the society, the highest level in positions in society. So, but generally speaking, Blossom, I think we can say that we are charting well and we're staying together as a country.
You mentioned earlier the stimulus package. What are the updates in terms of how much has been paid out so far? Maybe the greater or the sector that has applied for relief most. And there are some, especially the busmen, saying that they have not received anything from the stimulus pack. Not something. Most of them saying they have not received their disbursements as yet. What can you tell us about the stimulus package specifically?
I think you must have heard from the numbers, the persons that have not received, but not most, because we have the numbers. Most of the busmen, because we have a totality, because they all have to register their buses. And therefore we have the numbers of buses, and we know the numbers that have already collected checks. But remember, this is a challenging work for. The issue is not the money availability. The issue is the procedure and the administrative mechanism. And some people do not have bank accounts. So it makes it difficult because people are not allowed to come into the ministry. So you had to have register with the ministry and have your bank account available so that it can provide electronic transfer. In some cases, incorrect information was given. So there are a number of challenges. So it is not fair to say that most busmen have not received. Some people have come in and explained their situation, and that have been corrected. The number of workers in some institutions did not get the monies on time. And then in some cases, people that did not have, those we are paying individually, not the businesses, because we wrote checks to the businesses, and their responsibility was to meet the conditions of the monies that we've given to give the workers, not the management and administration at a high level in those operations. Some cases, the individual person did not have a bank account and therefore they had to print checks, and that posed a difficulty for them. So the issue is not, definitely, I am absolutely clear. I can't tell you the number. All I know is a couple thousand persons already have received. That I can say in terms of numbers of persons. And in any event, Blossom, it has to be updated. While we're speaking here now, people are receiving checks. So, and we have in fact increased the areas of support. And you remember my first national address, we specify restaurants, bars, and so on, hotels and so on. We have then broadened the level of persons that we are providing support for. So it's not just busmen and taximen, and of course we have gone to the market vendors. We are looking at various levels in the society. So we continue to look at some hotels, for example, Royalton Hotel that did not provide a list of workers and sent the workers home and did not pay them anything because they were just hired. We are now getting the list of the names of those workers, and we will give them the 40% that we promised all workers that have been marginalized in this time.
Speaking of relief for those affected by COVID-19, just last week, the NIS announced a $10 million fund for an unemployment fund. And they have gotten some backlash for what people see as a meager $330 per month for the unemployed. And a post on social media yesterday from the NIS Facebook account, I think, exacerbated the backlash with people basically saying NIS is telling them, this is what you're getting, take it. What are your thoughts on the entire NIS situation and the unemployment fund that they are making available?
First of all, the government does not have to take responsibility from running of the NIS. As you know, the government, NIS is an independent body. We have a couple members on the board of the NIS, and the NIS has a responsibility to the workforce. The board of directors of the NIS comprises the union membership, which represents the workers, and the employers and so on. They're majority of persons on there. So they decide policy. So if the workers are not happy with what they're receiving from the NIS, they can deal with their board representatives on the board accordingly. But I hasten to make the point. NIS, as we all know, is supposed to be an institution that will be there for permanently so for retired persons and those retired. We know there have been serious concern about the viability of the NIS in the long term, and therefore they do not have a lot of resources given the level of expenditure that they have to come up with on a monthly basis. So one has to understand this. I am not there with the NIS to give you every detail of this, but I'm just giving a broad understanding of the problem. But let's face it, you and I know this. we some of us never really satisfied with some things that we get. Sometimes you get it. If they didn't give any, nobody would complain. Now they're giving, no, it's not enough. Well, maybe it's not enough. I'm not saying the NIS should not give more, but I think it's something that the NIS can have to handle with their membership. And of course, it's the workers' money. I make the point. This is not government money. This is the workers' money, and the workers have a responsibility to guide through their representation on the board the policies of the NIS. So I leave it to that.
All right. Another thing that has been making conversation in the public domain relates to the reopening of Grenada's borders. Over the past few weeks, we've been hearing conversations about opening the borders bit by bit, starting regionally before we go to the rest of the world. What's the latest update on that? Have we made any final decisions on the date? What areas will be facilitated in the meantime and so on?
We have stated a policy that we want to open in June, but all the protocols and all the things that have to be done must be put in place, because one thing we do not want is to have been seen as very successful in a general sense in keeping this virus away from the general population, and to do something now that reverses that. We do not want that. So we have to dot the I's, cross the T's, and therefore a number of protocols. The protocols with the airlines have to be settled. The protocols with the hotels must be settled. And clearly the protocols with different governments, because we live in an integrated area. So I think this is what is being worked on. The ministry at this point and the COVID Secretariat and the subcommittee of cabinet, the COVID subcommittee of cabinet have advised that they're working steadfastly towards June 30th. But that looks as the period, because it is not one hotel they have to work with. Because when people come here, if one hotel is ready and the other one is not ready, then clearly we have to be careful. Now, if someone is coming with a charter service and they do all the protocols that we want, and when they get here, all the protocols are followed, then we can deal with that. But you have a general commercial airlines coming in with persons, locals coming in to visit families, people coming from different hotels, then we have to dot the I's and cross the T's. This is not what people have to understand. Sometimes I listen comments and I say, people simply don't, some of us simply do not understand the problem this thing has faced. has posed for every single one of us. Those of you guys working in the media would know that too, that you have had to confront with problems that you never thought ever that you would ever see. And I myself, as Prime Minister, when I accepted this job, never thought I would have to face. I knew when I even came, there was a possibility of hurricane. So I expected that. And even then, I was in shock. So you can imagine what this one has brought for all of us. I said, we all need to support each other. I need the support and in the interest of the country, and I have to support and provide the support to all citizens in the country. And I think to some extent, I think we are achieving that as a people.
We've had a lot of easing of regulations over the past few weeks to get the economy going again. What's the thought process behind balancing safeguarding the public's health and keeping the economy going or keeping it alive? How are you able to do that and putting things in place to ensure that both can thrive in this pandemic?
But again, you need the cooperation of the people, right? Because you can put all the regulation in place, and if persons do not adhere to it, it can cause problems when you start off. But let me just make this clear. You can't have an economy if you don't have health. So the health system must be in place. The protection of the health of the population must be priority. I've seen the debate taking place around the world, regionally and internationally, and I must say I'm in the category of those who say health first, opening up borders and opening up business. Because in even, Lawson, let's accept this. You and I, we're not going into a restaurant and sit down and eat just like that. If we fear for ourselves, if we fear others coming there would end up infecting us, right? The average man is thinking the same thing too. So if you don't put the systems and protection of health in place and have people tested appropriately and do all the necessary protocols, you will not get business. People are not going to invest. People are not going to take risk and walk into businesses to do commercial activities. If they fear, it would lead to some physical problems for themselves. So health is going to be the major factor, but clearly you have to have an economy, because if you said you close down permanently and you don't have an economy, you will create a disaster, another form of disaster. So they have to be balanced, but health is number one.
Key to getting the economy going also is public transportation. And with the announcement yesterday that the service will resume today, and I know I have to speak with some officials after you, Prime Minister, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the public transportation and buses saying that it would be challenging for them to get the system going today. What are your thoughts on the fiasco?
No, I could understand the challenges, and I think initially when the transportation committee met with the buses, and when they were looking since last week, they were planning Monday, but with the number of things that had to be put in place, they had to put it back to today. Well, if today turns out to be not convenient enough, then that's something that can be worked out with the busmen, the buses around the country, and the Ministry of Transport. But because we hear the cry of the people want to come out to do their business and to follow protocols. At the same time, we know the problems that the busmen and the conductors and so on are facing. So we have to balance everything. You know, it's not the case that you do all what the buses want, or you do what all the people want, you do what all government wishes to see. We all have in this, as I pointed out, we're in this thing together. We can't have people bundled together in a bus that normally takes 18 persons. We have to limit the number of persons. Similarly, persons must know that they have to protect themselves, not depend on the busmen alone to have an sanitizer and observe this physical distancing protocol. They have to also do something for themselves. So I'm sympathetic to the population and to the consumers, but very sympathetic to the bus owners and drivers, because they have some concerns too. Government is helping. As you know, we providing similar support for the busmen. So we have not left the busmen on the side of the road. We are providing help for them, and that's why we call on all of the busmen, not just some, all, to understand that the government is making sacrifices on behalf of the people. And in effect, therefore, the people are making sacrifices, and we all need to make some sacrifices at this point in time.
I know I have to let you run, Prime Minister. Just two more questions. As it relates to Grenlich, are you able to give us an update to the recent judgment made and going forward with that issue?
Well, we are working very closely on dealing with that. Minister Bowen and his team, they're working together. We hope to have some reasonable resolution to this matter. We want to, anytime you have lack of an air of uncertainty in any serious area of activity, it does not help business atmosphere. So this is not something that we all are happy about. We are where we are for many different reasons, and we're working together, and we believe that we'll end up with a solution that is going to work in the interests of the country, and hopefully also in the interests of the shareholder of Grenlich, which is the major shareholder of Grenlich, WRB, and the rest of the shareholders.
And finally, yesterday we saw the news release about the issues at TAMCC, and you mentioned that you would be working quickly to ensure that the issues are resolved. Can you expound on it a little bit as to the specific issues that would be maybe tackled in the first phase of fixing the institution?
A number of issues. A number of issues are mentioned, but not all of them would not be solved overnight. There's some actions government will take to start the process of resolving many of the issues. And Boss may make the point, many of the issues raised, unfortunately, that they were not created during this COVID-19. Some of the issues were there a long time before, and we have to take responsibility as a government and other governments in the past, not just NNP. NNP has to bear some responsibility for not having confronted the fundamental problems. TAMCC is not in the best shape of a tertiary institution that we all know is so essential for this country's future. We have to accept this, and therefore I'm promising a lot of aggression in dealing with the TAMCC situation, because this is about the future of this country, and we can't fool around with it. So I promise to move very quickly, and very soon you will be hearing actions taken in the best interests of the government, of the people, of the TAMCC, and the students in general.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Any final words? The people who have been on the front line battling with COVID-19, the next steps for government in fighting this pandemic?
Well, to all the people who are making their contribution to dealing with the problem, having to literally risk their lives, as I mentioned earlier on, it's not a nice thing. I mean, to those who are out there, as I mentioned, the frontline workers, the doctors, the nurses, the hospital workers, not just nurses and doctors, all who provide services at the medical facilities throughout the length and breadth of the country. We want to say to them, and I'm not saying that everyone step up to the plate. There's some in the medical field that did not step up to the plate, and we have to be honest with that. But the majority of them have contributed immensely, and we must commend them for this. Similarly, at all levels in public service, we found the same level of formula where some have really stepped up to the plate and some did not. But as a country, we must say, generally speaking, we've done what we have to do. And the ordinary workers out there, the people who are bearing the brunt of the problem, there are senior citizens who have to be in their homes and can't see their loved ones. You know, people who have lost their loved ones in this period, because although we didn't have deaths here, we had deaths in New York and other places, in London and other places. And the pain that a lot of them have to go through. Many of them with their grandparents and mothers at a certain level. We are told that we should not be going in their homes and interacting too much with them. That's painful to some extent for people personally. So my heart goes out to all of them, and to say we are not good wicked in general. Let us continue to bat the way we've been batting. and I believe we'll score a lot of runs in now and in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. PM, for being one of our guests this morning. Truly appreciate your time. I'll let you get back to the business of running the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blossom, for this opportunity, and stay safe.
Thank you. You do the same.
Good. Thank you.
That was Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, one of our guests this morning. We thank him once again for being our guest. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to delve a little further into the issue of the resumption of public transportation. We have the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Anna Brazan, joining us, as well as ASP Jesmond Prince from the Royal Grenada Police Force joining us. This is To The Point on Classic Hot and GBN. We'll be right back.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy. To reduce your chance of